Hi, this is Colette Emery, and I thank you for your time today in viewing my video. So this is basically a icing on the cake experience here, as you have gone through my manual and looked at my evaluations based on the training for instructors. As I was completing this project, I had the opportunity to actually conduct a authentic project with the Gary Community School Corporation. And all of the content that I used in that particular training, which was based on office communication, actually stemmed out of my project, which is based on instructor communication. And I just thought it was an excellent opportunity, and I was so thankful because not only was I composing the project in order to graduate from the university, but to be able to put it in action, to demonstrate it, and then have data to see where it's effective was just, again, the icing on the cake. So this is just a training recap and data trends that I wanted to share, again, regarding my training with the Gary School District. So just to recap, so Forward Excel Training and Design is actually a business that I created that again stems out of my project for graduation. And so before I get into the details of what that is, I just wanted to lay out the agenda. So I've got a couple of things here. So I am going to introduce Forward Excel and just really give out the details as to what that business is. I'm also going to talk about the audience and demographics and need. What were those learners needing from me? I'm also going to just give a summary of the training. So in other words, what did we talk about during our time together? After that, I'm going to go through the data overview. So I was able to construct a level 1 smile sheet survey to get feedback on what was effective and what was not effective during the training. And also, I just wanted to recap on future endeavors. So what do I intend to do after my graduation, and how do I intend to build my business? So what do we do? So what is Forward Excel Training and Design? Basically, this is a business that's centered on writing, training, and instructional design. I've been writing freelance for close to 15 years now. The training is relatively new. However, I do have a background in teaching. I've been teaching for, it'll be 6 years in January at Ivy Tech Community College in Gary, Indiana. And the instructional design has been birthed out of my graduate education at Purdue University. So basically, I'm just combining all of my skills and looking to serve clients. And when I think about how could I label this, this is really about professional development. So how can I reach clients who need development in terms of business, whether it's education, on the job? How can they be more excellent? And specifically, so my goal is to develop training programs and documents that are customized, practical, and accessible to all learning preferences. So all of the documents that I used are originally designed, and they're customized for that particular audience. Whenever I meet with a client, I do in-depth analysis to see what their specific need is. So in a nutshell, my mission is simple: to enhance productivity through training, writing, and instructional design. And so really, this is all under the umbrella of communication. It doesn't matter what industry a person is in, they're going to have to communicate effectively in order to be productive. And so if I can help with that through maybe training or creating a job aid through writing, that's my ultimate goal. So who is my client base in terms of Forward Excel? Educators, entrepreneurs, organizations, whether that be through corporations, it could be through social service agencies, leaders of all types, so managers, principals, administrators, service providers. So for example, individuals in the hair industry, perhaps someone who owns an auto mechanic shop, or restaurant owners, and students. So really, there is no industry who does not need effective communication, whether that training comes in form of writing skills or speaking skills or interpersonal skills. Okay, so now I want to get into the actual training recap and the data trends from my training this summer. So here's a brief overview. This training took place on Wednesday, August 12th. And it's very interesting because this was exactly 3 months after I officially launched my business, Forward Excel. I launched it on May 12th, 2015. So within 3 months, I had my first client. Such a blessing. So particularly in this training, my audience consisted of administrative assistants and mid-level managers. It was held at Glen Park Academy. That is an elementary school in Gary, Indiana. And there is a large number of secretaries. I believe there are about close to 60 secretaries within the district. And so to help them work effectively in their buildings and also attend the training, the lead secretary whom I worked under asked me to conduct the training in 2 different sessions, which I thought was perfectly reasonable. That way the buildings were not uncovered. So typically mid to late August is when children are preparing to come back to school, do registration, scheduling, books, and it's really critical that the staff is there and prepared to help. And that's why we had the 2 sessions. Although 60 participants were invited to attend, only 40 appeared. And the age range spanned from mid-30s up to 70 years old. In terms of learners' characteristics, all of the clients were adults. There was a diverse span of ethnic backgrounds, but mainly African American and Caucasian learners. And we had a mix of digital immigrants as well as digital natives. And they had a wide variety of skill usage regarding technology. Socioeconomic status is unknown. And in terms of learning style, preferred learning styles, it's based on tactical, verbal, audio, visual, and social. So in this training, there was a little bit of individual work. There was also group work. There was role playing. There was also audio and visual activities as well. So concluding the training, I sent out a survey created through SurveyMonkey a couple of weeks after the training. And 15 respondents gave results, and we'll be going through those later in this video. So what we're looking at here is just a summary of the needs analysis. So what did this audience need, and what are some future goals in the event that I'm invited back to do trainings? So what I thought was interesting first regarding this gray box at the top, there is no professional development department at Gary Schools right now. And it has not been, I believe, for at least 7 to 8 years. So the Gary district has gone through some significant budget cuts, and unfortunately that was one of the departments that had to go. So staff and professionals have been without training for about 7 to 8 years. So what I find interesting is that being able to come in and do the training, this is going to really set the tone for the department's future direction. So there has been some downsizing, there have been merging of departments, and when that happens, there needs to be training. Training to help the staff understand what the new procedures are, refreshers and updates on current skills. And so in doing this training with the staff, this will hopefully set the tone for other departments who may want to participate. And I think that this type of training, which is basically professional development, it should be yearly. And so in the event that I am invited back, I will do a yearly assessment really based on skill building. So what are the clients learning? What have they mastered regarding effective communication? And finally, the assessment, that's going to yield the data. So when the administration, those who are in charge of funding asks, okay, so why should we have this training? It's the data that supports that. So what is the training objective? So what was my goal as an instructional designer? It's that learners will demonstrate increased skill with office communication strategies by a mastery level of 50%. So I want my learners to be 50% better than they were before they entered the training. This is just a summary of topics. So what did we discuss? Phone etiquette, diffusing conflict with parents and students, finding solutions to difficult questions. Sometimes parents will call in with difficult questions regarding processes or student grades, or it may be a conflict of some type. And secretaries, what's interesting is that they are the first faces that a visitor will see in the school. And they have actually a very powerful position. They're almost like the gatekeepers. And so naturally, people will assume that they are the go-to person for all situations, all problems, and that may not always be the case. So in the midst of a busy day, secretaries have multiple responsibilities, record keeping. In addition to that, they work with the faculty, administration, and work with parents and students. So what happens when there's a difficult question? How to answer that? And who should we go to? So those are the type of things that we discuss in this training. Number 4, so again, multitasking and solving problems. When I spoke with these ladies, and that's very interesting, so all of the clients were women, they talked about the major level of multitasking that they engage in. So from the moment that they hit the door at 8 a.m., they're moving, running, taking care of business, getting things done. It's really a never-ending position. Number 5, professional dialogue among co-workers, staff, faculty, students, and administrators. So how should we talk to one another? What is the content of our conversations? That was a very interesting part of the training. And then finally, professional attire. So secretaries, office administrators, assistants, they're often sitting quite a bit throughout the day. So comfort is always a concern. But how should we dress? What is appropriate and what is not appropriate in the workplace? Got a lot of discussion out of that. Okay, this is just a flyer that I created. So in terms of executing the training, I worked with the administrative assistant for about 3.5 weeks. And so this is just a snapshot of the flyer that was sent to each of the secretaries. It was sent out through email with just a summary of what the training was about, and also just the who, what, where, when, and why details and all of those good things. This is a table flyer that I created. So when the the audience, the learners entered into the location, I just had this decorative table design out, and this is just one of the designs that I wanted to put in this video. This is the agenda. So now the agenda that you're looking at, this is only for my reference. My goal was to type out each section moment by moment in order just to stay on track. And so again, I only had a short amount of time because we also had to allow for the lunch hour. So there is a union system in the Gary School District, and so all professionals must have a 1-hour lunch. And so what you're looking at here is the full agenda. And this was exactly the same for the afternoon training. So I did share the course outline with the learners, and then we really talked about the strategic communication. I opened up with a video. Actually, I found it through YouTube, and it was just a comical video regarding what secretaries face on a day-to-day encounter. So I always like to open up a training or even a teaching in my classroom with just a video, something like a what not to do, something to help establish a common ground. I really wanted the secretaries to know that I'm on their side. I'm here to help them shine professionally as they communicate with their coworkers, staff, students, and clients. And a lot of times secretaries are blamed for situations that are not their fault. So my other personal goal was just to really uplift and encourage the audience today or that day. I also talked to them briefly about some of the interpersonal communication concepts, perception, verbal communication, nonverbal, supportive and defensive climate. That was really one of the areas that I honed on in. How do we establish a supportive communication climate, and how do we diffuse it? And the second half of the training was centered on office attire. So how do we communicate success and style? A lot of the learners were older women, so comfort again is an issue. How do we find things that are appropriate for the office and comfortable? We did a pop quiz on what and what not to wear to the office. And oh, I should say one thing. Before we did the office communication, I'm sorry, before we did the office attire section, we did a segment of role plays. So I had these scenarios out where two volunteers would come up and act out a scene. So, what happens when a irate teacher comes into the office upset about his or her paycheck? Or what happens when an irate parent comes in with their child angry about a grade and they want to go up and talk to the instructor immediately during the class? How do you handle that? We did a role play of when an administrator just comes in and, snaps off or bites the head off a secretary. How do you deal with that effectively without it, evolving into a full out fight or a conflict? So this is just a view of Glen Park Academy Library. That's where the training was held. And Glen Park is one of the newer built buildings, school buildings within the Gary School District. I believe there were a few other buildings that were established a couple of years ago. We don't have a new middle school or high school yet, but I hope that that is the goal. I really believe that when trainings and education are held in a new building, it helps lift the morale up. This is just a picture of the snacks that the head secretary provided. And that's me right before the training. And this is also on the right hand side, just a picture of my table demonstration. So I have my business cards out, the training manuals. Again, that's really the mainstay of my business. I train from that. The activities are in there, the role play, the personal evaluations, the training content. That was what each of the learners got. And in the back there is my frying pan with all of the concepts for the role plays. And these are the learners in action working on an ice-breaking activity. It was human bingo. The learners seemed to have really enjoyed the session. Some of them had worked together at different school systems several years back, so it was also like a brief time of just fellowship. Okay, so some days, a couple of days after the training was concluded, I sent out a level 1 survey. And basically in the instructional design piece, whenever a training is conducted, it should be evaluated by the learners. The goal is to make sure that a training is most effective and that the learners are walking away with skills. Skill mastery is the goal. So the purpose of this training was to determine what was effective in terms of its structure, its content, the applicability. Were the learners able to apply the skills covered within the training? And specifically with this project, the training was administered 16 days following. This is just a summary of the email greeting that I sent out to all the secretaries. So I copied the head secretary on this. And to encourage participation, I offered a $10 gift card for the first respondent. Actually, for the first 2 respondents, because I did 2 separate trainings, I thought it'd be fair that I would, just offer 2 gift cards. Actually, it was one to Chick-fil-A and one to Panera Bread, just enough to go out and grab a bite of lunch. What we're about to view now are the survey questions. Based on your experience in this training, office professionals will find the content applicable. So again, we have 15 respondents, and I'm just going to go to this lower area here to the left-hand side. And this was a Likert scale, though it was based on the strongly agree to a strongly disagree structure. So basically, over 50% strongly agreed that the content of the training was applicable. Second question. Based on your experience in this training, office professionals will be more successful in events of conflict management with office guests and colleagues. So again, in review of this area to the lower left-hand side of the screen, over 50% strongly agreed. Next question. The training manual was straightforward and easy to follow. Over 50% were in the category of strongly agree. Next question. The presenter was knowledgeable about the topics. Again, over 50% agreed, strongly agreed. Next question. The training session was professional. Very glad to see this. Nearly 87% strongly agreed. So what we're going into now, so basically again I had 10 questions in the survey, and some of them were short answers. So what you're looking at here is just a screenshot of the responses from the training. So here's the question. In addition to the training on office communication, what additional concepts or topics would you like to explore? So what I'm going to do is just kind of go through these slides briefly, and then I did type out a summary of what the comments were. Okay. One thing that I noticed is that some of the learners were interested in training on technology, so I do hope that I can go back to the district and cover that as well. Technology navigation like software, Microsoft Word, internet navigation. These are just more respondents. Okay, this is a two-part slide here. How useful were the content and training activities? Please provide a comment. So I'm going to go on, and you see these the green bar at the top represents extremely useful. Very useful is reflected in the turquoise bar. And now we see the actual percentages. So 46.67% found the training extremely useful, and 53.33% found it very useful. Okay, so here is a summary of recommendations that came from the comments section of the survey. So one suggestion was a microphone, and I wholeheartedly agree. I do not have a large lion baritone type of voice, and typically in my teaching sessions my voice is audible, but the library was a very large space, and I did make a point to walk around during the trainings, but when I had to work the computer in regards to the PowerPoint or videos, it may have been a little difficult to hear me. So I will invest in a microphone for future trainings. 2, better setting. So as beautiful as that building is, there was no air conditioning, and it was early August, and we were in those days where it was hot, 85 degrees and up, and so we did have some fans going, but it's hard to concentrate when room conditions are not working in our favor. 3, Microsoft training. So the learners did want training in regards to the software, navigation, technology. So I would love to come back to the district and do that with them. De-stressing techniques. So we mentioned this earlier in how office administrative assistant, their work never ends. From the moment they hit the door, they're running, they're multitasking. So how do you deal with that stress? How do you separate your emotions from the position? How do you stay effective? How do you keep your cool? I'll definitely add some points, more points into that for my future trainings. Point 5, technological aspects in our district so that we may become more efficient. So secretaries and administrative assistants, they use software to complete their jobs. So I interpret this to be just more training on how to use that software effectively. Organizing through chaos. And point 7, if we could have a cool climate, it was a little warm. So again, that point number 7 really just summarizes a point 2. But overall, I'm thankful for this feedback because it could have been a lot worse. Okay, I had to include this, so I'm just gonna summarize this slide here. Here was a suggestion. So one of the secretaries mentioned that apparently co-workers or colleagues chew gum and eat while on the phone. Highly unprofessional. So and this slide just really summarizes, what had been happening, but it's a little baffling because, again, in terms of our age group, the learners were mid-30s up to 70 years old. So why are we eating and chewing gum on the phone while talking? Really not sure about that, but that is an area that I will address in the next training if they have me back. Okay, this also just summarizes what their interests are regarding future trainings, more on professional development and software. Okay, here's a question. What are your suggestions regarding the training session? So this just summarizes their comments. What was interesting is that some of the secretaries mentioned that their administrators are very difficult to work with, that the administrators were responsible for some of the defensive communication climate. And from what I understand, the administrators are responsible for who works in their building. So that concern came up quite a bit. How do you work effectively with your administrator or your leader? Just more commentary. What I was thankful to see is that it was an overwhelming response for more trainings. The audience wanted me to come back. They did find the information helpful, so that just makes this work worthwhile. Just more commentary here. Okay. So I would like to expand the time on the training. It was only close to 3 hours, which was pretty good, but maybe just to have an extra 30 minutes to add in some video activities, I thought would have been great. So I'm going to do some research to find some video activities that we can use in the future. Okay. So what you see here are the email responses. So I tried to keep this as confidential as possible. So the first two respondents who completed all the questions of the survey and in their email address, they would get the gift cards, which I did personally deliver to them. And this question says, based on your experience in this training, would you attend another one with Forward Excel Training and Design? Don't forget to provide your email address for the gift card drawing. And these are just the responses with email addresses. What was interesting is that the winners of the gift cards happened to work literally in the same building in the same department. Some more feedback. Lots of yeses. Thankful to see that. Okay, so lessons and revelations. What have I learned regarding this training experience, and how do I apply that to all of the education that I've received from the university for the last 3 years? The first point was continual effort. So to make my training program, my business a success, it's going to be a continual effort on my part to be better, to do more research, to stay abreast of trends, to really hone in on audience need. I really want to put myself in the place of my learners. What do they need to know? What do they need to master? So it's a continual effort. Patience. So the process of actually getting the contract requires a lot of patience. So a client wants the training, but sometimes budget is an issue. And so there's a fine balance of setting your guidelines as a trainer, as a professional, and then delivering a quality product while still pleasing the client. So patience. Basically, regarding this training, the secretary, the head secretary who I worked with, she wanted it. She supported me all the way. However, there were people over her, her administrators, who some were for the training, some were not. So we had to go through a lot of red tape to get this approved. And it takes patience to communicate effectively, to not show negative emotion. So that was a great experience, because there were a couple of times I just got a flat out no, no, we can't do this training. But I still maintained my faith and completed the project, worked on it. And just when I thought it was just going to completely not be a go, I got the call, we want the training. So patience was a big virtue there. Guiding the client. So the client doesn't always know what he or she wants. They just know that there's a problem, something needs to be done. So on the part of the instructional designer, he or she really needs to guide the client and show them why this training is important. What can I show you that's going to help your team, your department be even more effective? I have to prove to you why you need my services. And then finally, confidence in my product. So over the years, I've had so many people encourage me regarding my talent for writing and my work. And it's one thing for people to say that, your mentors, family, and friends, but it's another level when you bring this out into the public regarding people that you don't know. So I see that I have to have confidence in my product and know that, yes, this is great for the academic sector, but it's great for businesses as well. And this also goes back to pricing, establishing solid pricing, not backing down, and being fair. I know that my training is effective, and this is another reason why the research, the data from the surveys is so important, because it confirms that. So what's next? This is just a summary of what I intend to do in the future. So first of all, I'm going to complete this master's program. Yay! Graduating December 12th, 2015. After that, I'm going to continue developing this training program. I'm going to be updating my website, continue training, working on training manuals for leaders, entrepreneurs, and technology navigation. So right now I've got 2 under my belt. I've got the instructional communication program written, and I've also got the office communication, which actually I've renamed to the workplace communication program written. But I want to develop 3 more areas. I also need to purchase tools and materials. For example, I want to create training videos through Camtasia. I need that software. I also need a microphone. And I also want to start looking at office space. I'm thinking big on this project, and my goal would be to have a computer lab. If audiences could come to me, that's going to be more profitability, but also help make the training more flexible, more applicable to the audience. I also want to create training videos and conduct webinars in order to expand my audience as well as profits. So a friend encouraged me to do this. So basically, if I have a training online, someone can log into my training at 2 o'clock in the morning. Now I'll be knocked out sleep, but at the same time, I'm making money. My goal is to seek contracts with local area schools and organizations. I am going to be reaching out to current business owners that I know. I'm thinking of creating either maybe just a quick info sheet or a flyer, just letting people know what I do and that I am here available for work. I'd also like to continue my work as an adjunct instructor and teaching in more areas. So currently I teach in communication, I teach in English, but I'm open to other areas regarding technology, business. So these are my plans. Well, I thank you for your time today. It has been a pleasure just to be able to talk about this experience, and it's such a great blessing to have this opportunity to see how my mentors, family, and friends believe in my work, and to also see how clients believe in my work as well. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those. We can communicate certainly by face-to-face, phone, by email. Below is my website, ForwardExcelTD.com. So check me out on the web. I'm open to your questions, comments, and critiques. Thank you for your time, and I'll be talking with you soon.